Hello, Hustef. Everybody doing well? Cool. Today I'll be talking about example mapping, 3 amigos, and behavior-driven design. And as is tradition, there's an agenda, and we'll talk about these topics. But a bit about myself. I was here at Hustef last year, and if you look very closely, Mike and Vipin, who are both in the program committee, are in that picture as well as an Easter egg. I really enjoyed my time last year, and I'm happy to be back. I work for Xavier as a consultant, a trainer, a speaker, and the topic that I'm sharing with you today is something that I do trainings in as well. So I've tried to condense a full-day training and share it with you in 20 minutes, 19 and 20 seconds. So we've got some ground to cover, and let's take you through it, right? Why I talk to you about behavior-driven design and all the topics we're going to cover today is because I think in agile testing there needs to be a shift in mindset. Quality is still very important, but how we do quality, I think, has shifted over the years. So you're a new tester. Your project management takes and adopts waterfall, so where is testing? Testing is all the way at the end. Now, in agile testing, I don't think that is very true or sustainable. So where I think testing should be when we talk about agile testing is maybe over here. There. Maybe we should also look into our team for testing, at the backlog, and what about the retrospective? Where can we add quality there? Oh, and what if our team starts? Oh, by the way, are we also testing on production? I hope we are. Abby. So this talk today is about shifting left. And the reviewer of my presentation asked, hey Martijn, why is this so important? Because I think that's where the fun is. And if everybody is having fun, we're building great things. So that's why I think this message today is very important. Next to that, there was a what's it called? I'm looking for the English word, but there was a research being done on the effect of testing late in the process. Now, we're doing sprints, and we're doing 2-week sprints, hopefully, but still, if testing is at the end, that also means that there's going to be late feedback. What does late feedback work? Rework. So if you have a testing principle that only focuses on testing late in the process, that also means that fixing those feedback items will take you time at the start of your next sprint, and your next sprint, and your next sprint. And that's why most of the teams that I encounter as a consultant are not having fun. They're doing a lot of rework in the next sprint. They're not doing cool new stuff that is important to the company, to the team, and that's not adding value. So that's why I think this talk today might bring you joy. Thanks for being here. I also briefly want to address shift left. My talk is about shifting left. There were some talks yesterday also about moving your quality to the start of your test cycle or production cycle. But as Abby and other speakers have also addressed, shifting right is also very important to keep it sustainable and keep the focus on quality where it needs to be. I digress. Shift left. So why I think having fun is important. Because if teams are focusing on these 3 items, I think they are empowered. This is why I think we as test experts should exist, why senior developers also have a very important role to play in their teams, and they should not be dragged into their refinement meetings, because that's the senior developer's job, right? Be present in all the meetings. If you bring back these 3 things to your development team, autonomy, mastery, and purpose, this is where people and teams shine. And this is also something that BDD and shifting left, I think, enables. Because if we're not worrying about the stress of getting a release to production, I think we can actually focus on solving complex problems with the knowledge we've gained and the experience that we have, right? Wouldn't that be cool? So, behavior-driven development. If we talk about behavior-driven development, we always try to bring up Gojko Acik. He wrote a few books, but the one that I want to highlight today is specification by example. Because specification by example is a technique that you can apply in your day-to-day software development job. It's also a technique that we will explain later, but I'll dive a bit deeper on why I think it will help. Specification by example talks about the behavior that a system needs to do. It steers away from technical discussions and makes sure that we can bring in stakeholders, product owners, and people from the business who can actually explain to us the requirements that we need to create when building a new feature or implementing a change. So with that understanding, we create a common understanding, a general language that we all talk about. And that's also the design part a bit, because if we are all aligned on the language that we speak and the words that we use when creating new features, that gets rid of ambiguity and misunderstandings. One quote that I usually bring to the table is that the development team will only build the feature that they understood that needs to be made, right? So if we don't have that understanding correct, what's going to be built? All the assumption of the development team. Now, you're going to have a sprint review and a demo, and the entire business team is going to shake their heads, and they're going to be like, oh, I thought I made it clear, right? So that's why specification by example can help. And ultimately, when you do this together, you come out of the room with requirements, tests, and documentations, all the stuff that you need or don't want to spend time on. So great stuff. However, if I say BDD, there's a lot of people who didn't come to this room because they thought I was going to talk about test automation. BDD is not test automation. However, over the years, it has been linked to practices like Gherkin and Cucumber and all of that kind of stuff that you can derive from doing proper example mapping. However, BDD and specification by example is not a testing method. It is not a test automation method. It can help your test cases and writing your test cases. However, it's not a silver bullet for all your problems. There's still stuff to fix. Also, when people hear BDD, they think they finally can get rid of Agile, right? That's not true. This is something that can enhance your Agile workways and make sure that you faster get to the point of creating the software. So that's why I think specification by example is cool, but it can only augment the processes that you have in place. Specification by example and BDD is a way to look at, are we building the right thing? Not building it the right way. That's the technical discussion that you want to have with your team, and that's open for discussion while you have picked up all the requirements that are now clear to you. So what I'm talking about today is especially figuring out how to build the right product. Now, example mapping. I promised you to give you some tools that you can bring away back to your teams. Make your refinements way cooler because we're using stickies. I mean, that's what Scrum and Agile is all about, right? So example mapping, what I'm going to present to you next is a structured way of getting to your examples. Examples drilled down from user stories, and I'll explain that in a bit. When you do example mapping, and you do this exercise with the right people in the room, I'll talk about that later as well, it immediately becomes blatantly clear which user story is too big to pick up and needs some extra refinement by the stakeholders or whoever. Or if you are right on the nose and your team can actually pick up the user story in front of you. It stops discussions on the little things. Also, some techniques will be shared with you later in this presentation. And as promised, you come out of those sessions with documentation, with test cases, with requirements, so anything a team needs to actually get going. This is what example mapping looks like. 4 colors of stickies, and it will change your entire world. The top one, the green one, is a user story. You've got user stories, right? I see some nods, some not. User stories typically have business criteria, business rules. So those rules are the next line of defense. Basically, the blue stickies represent any business rule, one single rule to rule them all. Well, that's a bad way of actually using this. You need to focus on actual executable rules that only exemplify one business rule and one business rule only. And how that business rule is applied is then shown and exemplified by examples. So the stickies underneath, I think the colors on my screen are different. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, those are green stickies and the top one is yellow. The examples are examples that your team needs to understand the business rule on top. And those business rules will make you understand the user story that's being asked by the business. Get where I'm going with this? If in any point in time there's a large discussion going on, longer than 1 or 2 minutes, you pick a red sticky and you put down a question. That's something that it can also bring out of the session and park longer discussions, so you don't, take an hour of time to get all the requirements for one user story. I think it's way easier to just get those red stickies out of the room and fix those problems before your next refinement session. One example that I brought to you today is a user story of free shipping above 20 euros. So in this output, we wrote an example of ordering one book that's $19.99. And as smart testers as you are, you can say to me, Martijn, that's under 20 euros and the shipping should be free. Or it shouldn't be free, so we are paying shipping costs. Now, if I buy 2 bucks and the price will be 20 euros, then the shipping will be free. That's what the user story does, that's what the rule applies. Now, there's another expensive book example, so it's not about the number of books, it's about the price in the cart. Again, shipping costs don't apply. Now, smart testers as you are, you say, well, books are fine and dandy, but what if we ship a fridge? We need to get a whole truck to the house of the customer that is ordering a fridge. What does this mean? Is a fridge free shipping? Maybe in your MVP it might be, but maybe in the next user story that's something that you can fix. So these examples help also build trust in the system and help you test early in the flow, because there's a tester present at the table, right? One thing that I encounter, a question that always pops up when I do this training is, Martijn, but we have these user stories and the rules, they basically are sequential. First we want to check if we're actually shipping nationally in Hungary or also shipping to the Netherlands, because that's way more expensive and free shipping is not going to apply for the Netherlands. Okay. After that we're going to check if the shipping is in Hungary. Then we're going to check if the total basket amount is going to be 20 euros or under. Does that make sense? So sequentially, you can add priority, but also the implementable rules that a developer is going to pick up, going to write unit tests for, and then, test-driven design and et cetera. That's another talk. But then you can actually say, hey, this makes sense, and this is the order in which something needs to work. So this is one way to do this. Some success indicators that I use when I coach teams and implementing this is the concept clear from all the examples? Sometimes people go nuts and think 2 books, free shipping, 3 books, free shipping, 15 books, free shipping. But how many examples do you actually need for your team to make it clear and understandable? That's the level where you need to go to. Another thing that you can easily see with mapping this out is the model aligned? A lot of times this writing out your thoughts will indicate if the model is clear or more information is needed from the stakeholders or anybody in the business. And another thing that people and teams run into is common naming for attributes. I've seen this happen in teams that they talk about a page or a web page or a site. Make sure that there's a common understanding to make this more efficient and avoid misconceptions. What I already mentioned is if you map this out and you've got a long list of rules, you might want to cut it down into multiple user stories. That's a really easy exercise to do when you are example mapping, because everything's already there and you can just copy paste everything. And the modeling problems will also come up. It's all about creating input and output. Example mapping is a thought exercise to get as many ideas on the table, and then we structure it back down to formalize it and create output in documentation and test cases. So the diverge and converge exercise is something that you need to take into account when you do example mapping. I've brought with you, myself, some success factors that I'm not going to highlight. These slides will be shared with you, including some bonus slides that are already in here. So either take a picture now or download these slides, because I'm going to continue now next. 1, 2, 3 photos. Next. So, 3 Amigo sessions. Who's old enough to remember this movie? Ah, okay. That's nice, some fans. 3 Amigo sessions. Who is using these, by the way? That's less hands. Okay, cool. Then we can carry on. Who likes refinements as they are right now? Ah, this is the exact amount. You go into your sprint review, you go into your refinement, somebody's writing down all the things, they're not contributing because they're writing down everything. Everybody's just shouting, especially the senior developer, everybody's looking to the senior developer. You have all the answers, right? And then everybody's on their phone, not really contributing. So we think that's a bad place to be. I think it wastes a lot of time, energy, and doesn't bring joy. So 3 Amigo sessions, turn it upside down. 3 Amigo sessions typically aim to get only 3 people in the room. That's somebody from the business, that's a technical person, and somebody with a tester mindset. All of you. From a business point of view, you need the input. What are we going to build? They are also the representative of the business and will be able to answer any questions that you have about why are we even doing this. The technical person should identify issues in implementing and creating this feature, and you as a tester need to come up with that fridge idea. You need to break this as soon as you get to this, because we're testing early. We are validating in this session if this makes sense, what things that we need to look out for, and what issues that we can prevent before any code is written. Now we're shifting left. So the starting point is to have a PO, a dev, and a QA. Typically, if you start out with this, it's nice to have a facilitator. Somebody to spot that a discussion is taking very long. They're going to write it down on a red sticky, and we can continue the rest of the conversation and make the most of our time. I advise personally to have a 20-minute time box. This is super strict. This is super fast. And you probably won't make it the first times. And, you know, trying this out, you might want to take 20 minutes and then 10 minutes to reflect on how your session went. But that's what a facilitator is for. And it's always good to practice with small stories. Something that you think, we can do this in a day. You know, you're practicing this technique before you try and example map your entire application. Start with something that you can comprehend and can come up with some really nice examples. This is what I see happen when I consult companies. There's still a silo mentality of throwing stuff over the wall. Your PO comes in with the team, says, here's the story, you know what to do. The developer thinks, well, I think this is what it needs to do. And then they chuck it over to you, and you say, well, actually, what about a fridge? What 3 Amigo sessions aim to do is get those 3 people in a room. Everybody's going to have a different perspective, but ultimately we want to make sure that we're building the right thing that is capable, sufficient, and doesn't break, right? So this is what 3 Amigos aims to do. There we go. So as my last example, that 20 euros shipping costs user story, the PO will bring it in and say, to answer your question, shipping above 20 euros is fine. That's what free shipping is for. The technical person is going to say, well, at least we're going to need a shopping cart to make this happen. And the tester says, what about that fridge? Hashtag, what about that fridge? So again, I have for you some success factors that you can either take a photo of or download this presentation later on for some bonus slides. But this is all I had to bring to you today. And I hope it brings value and more joy to your work. Thank you very much.
We'll have 30 seconds.
Hey,
Yeah.
I'm on time.
Brilliant,
That's what Dutch people do.
Brilliant, man. Very important first question. What if you have less than 2 amigos and a very sad face?
Yeah, I feel you're hurt.
Yeah.
Personally, I do. So what I just explained is that the 3 amigos has a concept to have somebody who can represent the business, somebody who can represent a technical angle, and somebody with a I want to break this and help quality mindset. Now, you can do this with 2 people if those people can represent those different areas. Ideally, you might find a 3rd person, or even a fourth person, if that makes sense. One thing that I do, for example, is that the senior developers, again, being pushed in a 3 amigo session as the know-it-all, but please introduce a junior developer so they can also represent that technical aspect. So find somebody who can represent those 3 areas, because that's the key to success. But if that's only in 2 or 1 person, it is what it is.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, amigo, amigo, amigo.
Amigo,
You
amigo,
go.
amigo.
Yeah, okay, that was the
Yes.
question. Very good question. I like that, actually. Thank you. As a tester, how can you enable shift left? How can you get involved earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a struggle of the tester, and I've been in the testing life for 19 years, so I feel your struggles. I think this discussion and this exercise is something that you can bring to the table. Please bring this home to your teams and your organizations, because I think explaining why this is so cool puts you in the seat to be at that table. So this is one way to actually put yourself in front of that process, so I hope it helps.
Okay, what if the team has 8 developers and 1 test engineer? Is it feasible to do 3 amigos? Test engineers will be, I think, burdened with meetings.
Yeah. So this is typically what happens. Now, I actually had a team earlier this year that I coached, and they had the same problem. They only had 2 manual testers, 2 test automation engineers, and 3 development teams. Now, you need to make the most of that, right? Quality is still not something that you can compromise on. So how can you make the most of that? I think, and that's also what I said to those testers, is if you are helping the team figuring out stuff that they can avoid, that's the most valuable time you can do. Because all your test cases will be written in those examples, and everybody is going to avoid those pitfalls early on. So if you put your time anywhere in the process, in the front is where it's going to be.
Okay. How to convince management and PMs that one-line user story is not enough to implement a new feature?
Wait a second, I didn't get all of that. Management and PMs. Yeah, so that rework slide, bring that home, show it to them. I mean, if that's what you're doing, that slide's going to explain it to them, that a lot of time and effort, but also money, is wasted on rework because there was not enough understanding. And doing rework means not being flexible or agile enough to steer on new findings or discoveries or trends in the organization. So you're becoming a slower vehicle, basically, by not doing this.
All right. This process is effective when co-working, but will this be effective in remote working setup?
Definitely. There's more and more tools out there that help you do this on a virtual canvas, and the pro of that is actually that you can take screenshots or export that into your Jira or whatever. Yes, and also because there's not 8 people in a room, you're not going to talk over each other. Everybody's going to have their turn because there's only 3 people, right? So actually, I think this definitely works remotely.
Okay, how can you persuade the team to change to 3 amigos instead of whole team grooming?
Right. So that slide on refinements and how fun they are, I think the efficiency and having people to opt out of the refinement and letting them do cool stuff and do their work is one pro that everybody wants to buy into. So that's what I usually bring up.
Okay, what proof to bring to the PO or PM to convince them of the importance of involving also testers in these discussions?
Yeah, I heard a similar question to another talker or speaker earlier, yesterday. I think we as testers can easily find proof. I mean, if I test your system for 30 minutes or an hour, I can probably come up with some defects, immediately proving that you need more testers or more focus on quality. So I think you know how to do this.
You were great.
Big
applause. Thank you, Martijn. Thank you very much.